Today I want to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Its opening weekend was this weekend, and it was predicted to open to a domestic box office of 120 million. Now it looks like it is opened just short of that with 114 million. So what will this mean for the film and Marvel in the future? Well, Ant-Man Quantumania opened to 120 million on a 4-day weekend, and Guardians of the Galaxy is opening just short of that. So, as we know, Ant-Man and the Wasp financially wasn't a success. I'm not sure if it did break even in the end, but I know it is considered to be Marvel's first proper flop. But I don't think that's going to happen with Guardians of the Galaxy. I think whereas Ant-Man and Quantumania got poor reviews, bad word of mouth, I think put a lot of people off, and it dropped off quite heavily after the first weekend. I think it was 70% that it dropped off. But I don't think that will happen with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. From what I've heard, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is a good film. It's got positive word of mouth. Critics and audiences alike seem to like it. So I don't think it'll be as bad as a drop off as Ant-Man Quantumania was. But Marvel films do tend to drop off after the first weekend. I can see this having some legs though. Like I say, I don't think it will drop off as badly. I think it will continue to do good. Whether it makes the $1 billion mark remains to be seen. I don't know if it does have that length to go, but I do think it financially it will be a success for Marvel. So this is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the conclusion to Marvel's trilogy about an extraterrestrial crew of misfits, kicked off with 114 million in its domestic box office debut. Those ticket sales rank as the second highest opening weekend of the year, behind Super Mario Bros. Movie with 146 million. The Super Mario Bros. Movie has just been unstoppable since it came out. It's beaten a load of records and it's still got the highest opening weekend of the year, keeping Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 off that spot. At this point, Disney must absolutely hate the Super Mario Bros. Movie. The amount of money it's taken this year, and it just seems to be still happily trudging along. I think ticket sales will slow down for the Super Mario movie because I believe it's tomorrow digital version comes out, and I think it's a week after the digital release comes out over here in the UK. Despite the towering figure, the film ever so slightly missed expectations of 120 million and arrived considerably behind its predecessor Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which debuted to 146 million in 2017. It's a jump on the first Guardians of the Galaxy, which introduced the world to Chris Pratt's Star-Lord and his friends and opened to 94 million in 2014. Now, the first one opened to 94 million because at the time, not many people knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy were. Now they are a household name because of the MCU. I think Disney will be a little worried about the film. It has underperformed from Volume 2 by 26 million. Despite ticket prices being higher, it shows a lot less people have gone to see it. But I think what will be making Disney a little more worried is it failed to meet the 120 million it was predicted. At the international box office, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 added 168 million from 52 markets, bringing its global tally to 282 million. In China, which was once a huge territory for Marvel, but has been increasingly hostile towards most Hollywood movies, the comic book threequel collected a better than expected 28 million start. Premium large formats, including IMAX and Dolby, accounted for 40% of the film's opening weekend ticket sales. IMAX alone delivered 10.7 million in North America and 25 million globally. We expect a strong audience response to yield a long, successful run at the box office, says the company's CEO. So, that we'll have to see. We won't really know until next weekend and see how much it drops off. So Marvel and Disney at this point must be a little bit worried about the film because they really need this to do well. They've not had a huge hit since Endgame other than Spider-Man, which is more of a Sony property. Yes, Spider-Man is in the MCU, but Sony still own the rights to the character, and I do think Sony make more money than Disney off the ticket sales for that. So Marvel and Disney will be hoping that this is a big hit. Like I say, I've not seen the film, but I have heard good things about it, so I do think it is going to do pretty well. I don't think it's going to hit well over $1 billion like what Marvel was starting to get used to before Endgame. I think those days have long gone for the franchise. They will have to do something spectacular to get those types of ticket returns back, I believe. I could be wrong. This could make $1 billion a plus. But I think a lot of the audience for Marvel isn't there anymore. They might come back for this. A lot of people do like Guardians of the Galaxy. A lot of comic book fans who knew them from the comic books, and a lot of people who were introduced to them through the MCU. But I think after this one, I don't think Marvel will be getting too much business from the movies. I think this is the last of the big hitters which they've got. Everything new which they put out in Phase 4 didn't really do well, with the exception of Spider-Man, but that was a continuing franchise from before Endgame, and Spider-Man is the most popular comic book superhero there is, so that was unsurprising that did well. But 114 million is, I mean, it's only 6 million behind what they were projecting, but it is still lower than what they were predicting, which won't be good for Disney, and they'll be keeping a close eye on this film, I would imagine. Can the fortunes turn round? Will it have legs to go at the box office to push up towards $1 billion? Maybe, but we will be able to see more of that next weekend when we see how big the drop-off is. Like I say, Super Mario Bros. Is still doing strong with the family audience. I do expect that to drop off now the digital release is coming out. But from the opening weekend takings, it looks like Guardians of the Galaxy is going to fall short. And if it does underperform to lower than expected overall takings, you've got to wonder what this means for the MCU going forward. I think part of the problem is the amount of content they pushed out after Endgame. It was 22 films over a 10-year period, and then suddenly it was just an endless amount of stuff for people to try and watch, and I think it got too much for a lot of people. A lot of people jumped off after Endgame. The people that stayed on, it was too much for people to constantly tune in weekly, go to the movies, especially when it got to the point where the stories weren't good, CGI, special effects were just getting worse and worse as it went on because they were pushing too much out. I think it was just a bit too much for people, and the people that were still interested started to lose interest with the amount of content coming out on it. And as a result of that, you've got movies like Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which is not taking the money it would have took before Endgame. So I think Disney can only blame themselves at this point, rushing out the quantity over quality and giving people far too much content for what they needed. And the content they have released is very subpar to MCU's high standards before Endgame. But what do you guys think? Do you think Guardians of the Galaxy will have legs to run? Do you think it will be successful? Or do you think it's going to once again underperform like so many MCU movies since Endgame? Do let me know in the comments below. And that's all from me. I'm off to make a fresh cup of tea.